What all set of conversations can we have with the business to ensure we start the collaboration journey? Fantastic. That's a word, the talent. So where do we, the most important thing is, do we have something called the leadership pipeline build? The most important thing is 3 B's. Build, buy and borrow. Correct? If you see your so-called competition as competition, you cannot borrow it. And I see the world is moving towards the borrow. Every time I see when we have to hire, the first question people normally the hiring, the so-called talent acquisition ask is, shall I give it to this particular consultant or should we go and take it from this particular school? Have we ever seen whether we alone have our own people so that the so-called talent is built? That's where the so-called talent development plays a big role. Thank you. It's talent development. Any other questions you can think of? Okay, how can you derive or create value to your customers? Now the question is, who is the customer? Employees or your external? Absolutely, it's both. Thank you. More. Okay. How do we collaboratively take a decision? Fantastic. That's where we really create something called VIC, value, impact and contribution. Thank you.
What's the differentiating factor we are going to bring?
Fantastic. Why are we here? Or why should you get a chair in the so-called boardroom? Thank you. Fine. Makes sense? Thanks to all my leaders who are part of this session. Thank you very much. Does this question sound something similar what you all said? Most important thing is, we as business leaders or HR leaders miss on something called the so-called drivers. I am not going to use the dirty word called strategy. Sorry, it's a very dangerous word. Everyone uses. Even nowadays, if you ask 12th people, children, they will also use strategy. I am confused. Even my daughter, second year, she also speaks strategy. I don't know what is this strategy. 18 years, still I am inquiring what this word called strategy. But most important thing is, how many of us really understand the financial drivers? Really have you sit with the business and understand what exactly drives the business? As rightly said, if you have to generate business, what is COGS? All those kind of numbers. Second, very, very important aspect, what is my culture? And we as so-called leaders really play a critical role in so-called nurturing and developing the most important aspect called culture. The so-called 3 things, leadership, culture and the so-called systems. That's what a job of a leader is. So that's where you play the major role. Important thing is, how many of us in this room really know the so-called leadership pipeline? When I say leadership pipeline, it starts with the so-called software engineers. How many of us in this room can tell me, okay, I know and I have built a pipeline for my software engineers to the so-called VPs of my business? Most of us, when we hear about leadership pipeline, automatically the trigger is, it's not our business. Succession planning, all those things are only meant for the people in the boardroom, only for the CHROs. No. As leaders, this is something is the key for the future and we should be really looking for that. And very, very important, you look at any of the organizations, they are built in. And that's where sustainability index also comes into picture. Again, thanks to madam, she was just telling about in line with what is written. What exactly? I think I'll also speak a little bit of Gyan. If someone can just do some kind of Google, there is a fantastic, now also it's relevant, a fantastic article from Dave Ulrich. I forgot, it's about the capability audit and all those things. If I recollect, I'll just tell you, and that article is still relevant. It speaks about what exactly your organization should be known for. Your so-called capability is built by the competencies of your stars or your talent in your organization. That's when this particular question is very important. How many of us have really crafted the capability engine in our organization? You look at Apple, you look at any kind of organizations, every company has got a DNA made up of these kind of small capabilities. And that capabilities is built with all these talented people. And that's very important for HRs to understand. Most of us, we don't know our business and probably we fail there. And as talent holders or talent so-called developers, it's very important to understand what exactly is capability and that drives the business. If so-called leaders' job is to create leadership, next job is to embrace change, third is to really, really work on structures. And that's where I'm sure everyone knows about Kodak. Kodak lost the whole thing. Most of the companies lost because it was not fluid in terms of the structure. Please understand, it is not the job of a CEO or a CEO to understand this structure. You as a leader play a big role in making sure what is happening in the industry and whether my organization is in tune with that. It's not about if Google or any of the companies have holacracy, we'll also do it. No. You got to understand the so-called culture, and that gets aligned with the structure, and most of us, we fail there. Please, let's not just do structure because other companies are doing it. Understanding structure is very, very important. And if you look at great organizations, I'm talking about a book called Good to Great, where the book says good is the enemy of great, and greatness starts by understanding three things: leadership, culture, and structure.